Hello there. Uh, let's hope everything is working today. I had a little problem with the bandwidth earlier, and I think we got it fixed. Um, how's everybody? I'm gonna check something. I think it's working now. Okie doke. Wanted to check to make sure that the bandwidth and everything else was working all right. Let me know if it is. Um, so okay. Um, oh no, there it goes down again. We'll see. Hi, John. How you doing? I was hoping that we could keep the bandwidth up today. It started high. I'll see if it's not there now. We'll see what happens. Hi, Fernie, Jose, Ali. Hi, guys. Oh boy. Is the sound in the video okay? Hey, Damon. Saturday's Church of Horology. We're all heretics, I think. Hi, Mark. Jose. Good. Okay, everything's working good. Thank you. And just hope that the bandwidth holds out. I don't know why it goes south lately. I've done that a couple of times, and it's the same. Should be a pretty good bandwidth, really. Okay, doke. Michael, how you doing? Yeah, well, we're upgraded, I think, to pretty top level. I mean, I used to. It was really funny. When I was working at the university, we had our department set up. We had our first gigabyte speed working on that, and so I got sort of spoiled and was doing everything on very high bandwidth. And this is getting to be some time back, and all of the apps that I was building and so forth were for this higher bandwidth. Also, too, University of Hartford was one of the few sort of mid-level universities that had what was called Internet 2. And Internet 2 was is a yeah, 240 baud in the 80s. Um, is there's it's another it's there's a whole other internet that's used for Research One universities, Research One universities, and um, the military and sort of special things. Now, the way we got it, University of Hartford, we weren't a Research One university. We're just sort of like a sort of a middle level private university. And our claim to fame, we had a great music school and Hart School of Music, and the rest of it was, like I said, pretty middle of the ground there. And what happened though, our president, who was a great guy, became the chair of the NCAA college, whatever they make decisions about certain kinds of ethical and other kinds of decisions to keep the team playing on the okay. So in order to do that, they had to have this higher bandwidth, and so they hooked us up through University of Connecticut, which is up the road quite a bit, and so that's how come we ended up with internet too. Now at home, I tried to I changed it from one company to another to up the bandwidth, and I've been noticing that even I asked my wife if she could stay off while we're talking, so that we could try not to use up any more than that's possible. We'll see what happens anyway. Okay, now then, Yeah. Um, Watchmakers had okay, yeah. Yes, they have I think the watchmakers have contributed a great deal to the reduction of our bank accounts. We we all agree with that. Anyway, the picture that I had was that there was an article, I don't know, a few years back for the top watchmakers from in the last 10 years, and I think it was from like 2012 to 2022. Philippe Dufour, Francois Mojan, Poppy, Carol Forstier Casapi, and Jean-Marc Viderec. Okay, and these guys were done all these great things, and they, most of them still probably are. Um, so the question, I guess, and this was Fernando's idea. I think it was a great idea. He said, which ones? Now, not just watchmakers, but watch companies. Like this would include um, just any watch company. I was going to say Parmigiani, but then that would include Michel Parmigian. I think guys like uh, Daniel Roth, for example, I know that he did a lot of work with the Chaumet brothers to bring back Breguet. And until the Chaumet brothers sort of sunk themselves and a good hunk of Chaumet by trying to corner the market on diamonds, and then went into the went into bankruptcy. They almost went to jail, and so there was about a 10-year period where Breguet had been brought from nothing up to, I mean, almost nothing. The only contracts they had a couple of military contracts, I think, with I I don't know who it was, maybe the French military or somebody for some watches, and the watches they had were not anything to to get excited about. And so then they started what Roth and some other people did. They started bringing him back, and so that's one thing I can identify and say, hey, this is something. Now, unfortunately, that was like I mean, back in the '80s, and so I'm looking forward to say, okay, so who has done a lot for horology? If Caesar were here, he would say, "Oh, how about Silicon Springs?" The answer is no. That's the other way. That's what's been done to wreck traditional horology. Okay. Anyhow, how you doing, Tim? Isa, how are you? Um, Breguet is probably a winner, but still living. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, they Breguet is one of my favorite brands. With see, the thing is that Breguet I like, Swatch Breguet I don't. How's that? And now, from what I understand, they've been starting to put some um, of the earlier metal parts back into some of the Breguet watches. I believe, including the Tradition. The Tradition is the one I really like. Hey, Andrew, how you doing? Um, Tuna, good to see you. Okay, so um, who do you think that was the kind of thing? The thing I was thinking of is sort of to. I think there's some sort of as a business who have really pushed it forward. Beaver. I think he's probably done a lot, but I'm not sure who else. Hey, Abdul, good to see you. Um, Bernhardt Letter, Isaac. I really like his stuff. I'm not sure how. I'm trying to wonder how is he influenced. I would love to have one of his watches. There's the what do they call the BLU, the Bernhard Letter Universal BLUs, but those are simply interesting watches with non-Bernhardt movements in them. but he's certainly a top watchmaker. There are a lot of others. Kari Voutilainen is another independent, and the FP Jorn, and so on and so forth. The two guys, um, who were they? Sven Anderson and Vincent Calabrese. They started the Independent Watchmakers Organization. Now, how that sort of benefited, I'm not sure. I think it did in this respect. It gave recognition to the importance of craftsmanship. So I would say yes, they've done a great deal in that direction. Um, there are also some things I think we often don't see, and some of them unfortunately have been forced. From my view, it's unfortunately. Some other views, it's like that's the way to do things, and that has to do with intellectual property. Now, I come from sort of an open source software kind of person. In other words, you write some software and you, you make it open source so anybody can use it. But that doesn't always work. In fact, it rarely works when you're dealing with in watchmaking. I know that Jean-Marc Wiedereck has, God, I think he's and Agenor together have a whole boatload of patents, and I'm not sure how they work. Um, Strawman hairsprings, those I think are a very important one. Another one too would be the Sandoz Family Foundation and the vertical watchmaking that they have in terms of from Parmigiani, Vachur, Alto Culpa, and Irwin, and all of these different businesses that they set up. And also, too, I got a FP Jorn has two different companies he set up for one for I'm going to say cardines for dials, and the other one for cases. And my Harry Winston has a case by him, Bautiers de Genève. Okay, so are those contributions, or are they simply kinds of things that are good for business? Okay, doke. Let's see what you got. Okay, Andrew, you'll throw out a name. I'm waiting. The name never got thrown out there. What happened? You throw it out the door or the window? Okay, let's see. Yeah, I'm a big, or is it Al? I'm a newbie to this Watts collection, Affliction. Since you mentioned it as an affliction, that means you're in deep. Okay, but I'd like to suggest the vast variety, price points, and country of origin has expanded the number of people interested in watches. Great point, excellent point. Ali, I think that it depends on how you look at it. Commercially, FP Jorn has made independent watchmaking viable and success. Very good point. Doing interesting stuff, having poetic, politic, poetic, and poetic view of the watch. That's right. I mean, his watch that is tells time by hands. I mean, that thing is wild. Uh, that is, things that kind of innovation. Um, the kind of innovations that Wiedereck has done with all these award-winning uh, modules that he created for all of these different companies, from Hermes to Van Cleef and Arpels, and you have some, I mean, just really imaginative stuff like that. Time suspended. I mean, great stuff like that. The double jumping hours. It's another one. Of course, he's my favorite, but the other one, one I think that hasn't seemed to go anyplace, and I would really like to see it is Vincent Calabrese's Calicis or something like that. It was a replacement. Instead of having a hairspring, he has some kind of hammer device. Really interesting. Speaking of hammer devices, that's another one. Is Maurice Grossman's Halmatic. Instead of having a rotor, they have this hammer, I guess, that goes back and forth. Well, hi, Brandon. How you doing? Frank Mueller, master. Hmm. That's an interesting comment. Why would Frank Mueller, and I'm pronouncing it wrong, why would he be a master? He has some interesting stuff, but I'm trying to think horologically. Most of his interesting stuff was in designs that I can see. Okay, let me get to the Groenfeld brothers. Yeah, I like their stuff too. You know, I'm trying to think what they did, and it seems almost like an afterthought. Well, they did two things really that I think are really a jump. One was to have what's it called? A Remontois Egalite in that watch. It's a very simple looking watch, and there's a little window, and that's the Remontois. He also has that one with the 1 second that uh, the 1 hertz. That's it. I think he's got a 1 hertz. They made a 1 hertz watch, and that. But I think the 1 hertz watch is only they have two things going on, and the 1 hertz is for the second hand or something. I saw that, and it was just really brilliant innovations by the Groenfeld brothers. Yeah, I agree. Uh-oh. Abdul, New Langenheim's Your Horology by the Sea. I saw that too. That's a that's another person I think who is sort of on another level of watchmaking is Marco Lang. That was one of his watches, by the way, the Georg that he had when he was with Lang and Heim. The new one that he did is just one of these brilliant pieces, and I think he has so many back orders on it, he doesn't have time to work with me on some nefarious project because I've asked. He's a great guy, though. He really is. See, didn't Jacob and Company just made history by creating a rotating reunion with his company, made a number of innovations? I don't know. Somehow I always have the feeling that Jacob and Company, Jacob the jeweler, um, I, I don't really see him so much as a horologer, but rather as a survivor. Okay. And a lot of his stuff is really blingy, and there's a lot of what they'd call, there's a lot of sizzle, but not a lot of steak. And I know that's a harsh thing to say, but that's my view of it. And I've seen his stuff time and again in the Grand Prix, and nothing came of it. I think once or maybe twice, one of the ones in the uh, the ones that involved either jewelry or art. Yeah, what's that one for? Uh, See our artistic things. That one of those categories. I think he made it to the nominations on that. He did have a lot to overcome. It's but I don't see horology. I see a lot of jewelry design and of a certain kind of jewelry design too. Andrew, Aline Sieberman and Gerald Genta, both for designers. Yes, I don't know if Genta ever did much with horology. I think he may have done some, but not very much. Most of what he did was with watch design. He also ended up taking credit either by being mute or doing it on purpose. Genta, for example, a lot of people thought that the overseas design was by Genta because the Royal Oak and the what was that called? The diver that Patek Philippe had, Aquaman. It wasn't the Aquanaut, but the other one that they had. Those were by Genta. And so when the overseas came out, they said, "Oh, that was also by Genta." And then somebody said that to Genta, and he just, "What was that?" Didn't say, "No, no, no, he didn't do it." Hey, Goldfinger, how you doing? How about the Harboring? Oh, Michael, yes, I agree. Harboring, Richard and Maria Harboring, two great examples. Um, yes, I agree 100% because what you have with them is you have some very solid horology, nothing fancy, but very good solid stuff. You have some things that were complex, but basically at the core, just really excellent watches. So yeah, that's a great example. And again, they're not flashy about anything, but I agree. That was a good example. Um, no mention of Agenor. Yeah, you're right. I should have said more. Yes, of course, Agenor. One of the things, I mean, there's sort of like Jean-Marc Viderec, when you mention that, you're mentioning Agenor. And when you mention Agenor, you're mentioning Jean-Marc Viderec. Oh my God, yes. He totally revolutionized making chronographs. There are all kinds of other things that he has done too, or that was done by Agenor. A lot of things were done by Agenor that he was not involved in, but some of the most earth-shattering things were. Yes, yes, absolutely. Agenor is probably the top independent movement maker I think that there is. I can't think of another one. There are some other good ones, but not quite as good, I don't think. That's again, obviously, I'm prejudiced because uh, I think I'm so smart. Okay, Andrew, let's see. Ludwig. Oh yes, I agree. Ludwig Osteen, more so than the Freak, even though the Freak I think was a big deal, is his perpetual calendar. I've always been impressed by that. He did it with like I think 9 parts or something like that, where Patek Philippe used 200 and something parts to do the same thing to make a perpetual calendar. Yes, he is certainly a major, major one. I agree, Andrew. That's a great one. Hey, Washington, how you doing? H. Moser makes watches from cheese. they have contributed a lot. H. Moser, I think, it's sort of what would we do without H. Moser? We we wouldn't have. I don't think we'd have any really great watch company without a sense of humor. It makes sense that Underdog teamed up with him because Underdog certainly has a sense of humor too, and I think the thing of it is that one of the watches, were it not banned by the the ladies of the garden club, so to speak, uh, is the icon. That thing, I've seen it in the metal, and it is more fun. They have every stereotype of stuff that people put on a watch: the bezel, the Pepsi colors, the tourbillon, and all of this other stuff that were just so typical. And they did it as sort of a, to the whole industry, and they got so upset about it that they told them that they wouldn't be able to come to their shows if they if they kept it up, so they had to take it down. And then the watch made of cheese, I thought was very funny. They also had a one that was made out of vegetables or something. And I'll tell you, if you haven't seen it, they have a whole series of quote interviews with these companies that are going to make the ads for them. Yes, they are one of the gems. That's another gem that I think have added a great deal. And I think on two levels, right before the Malin family bought it, the company, the sort of one of the ancestors, I guess, of H. Moser, was on board with him, and then they came in with some great movements. One was a double hairspring, and the other was sort of this whole general set of movements that were running around 18,000 semi-oscillations per hour. And when Malin took it over, they expanded on that. They got another innovation that H. Moser has. Again, I'm not crazy about chronographs, perpetual calendars, a lot of things like that, but I admire the horology behind them. But what they did, usually they have this little stub of a hand in the middle on their perpetual calendars. And I asked him, "What's that thing for?" It's for the month because there's 12 hours in a day and there are 12 months in a year. And I thought, how obviously cool is that? So yeah, they are a great example of another one. Yeah, I agree, John. Yeah, yeah, Ali. Um, Ocean's stuff is really is very something. Hello, Sabiachi, is that right? I promise if I said it wrong, hello anyway. Oh, Christian Vanderclaw, yeah, yeah, his Christian Vanderclaw stuff is really great. You know, one of the things I don't know if they didn't develop base movements at Christian Vanderclaw. What they did is that they used a lot of other movements, but they developed all of these modules. Um, and more recently, they did it with not under the Christian Vanderclaw brand, but I think it was Van Cleef and Arpels that had that this like the solar system or something on his watch. Amazing watch. Arm& Strom, I agree, Jeff. Jeff, that's another one. Yeah, their constant force gravity and their resonance, yes. Arm& Strom is one I've been telling you guys, I think is a great, one that I did a video a couple of weeks ago saying that these are watches I'll regret not getting, and one of them sold right away, and that was the Arm and Strom. It was like $5,000. Now I think you can't get them under 8 or 9 something. Yeah, they're that's a real honey of a brand, I think. Oh, the Chinese brands, Isa, Peacock. I got to tell you guys, I reviewed a Peacock um, chronograph. No, wait, it wasn't a chronograph. It was a tourbillon, and that thing is solid. That reminded me a lot of a Grand Seiko, and for the price, it was like $2,000 or something and it was beautifully done. So you are absolutely right. I've been saying this for years, and nobody's been listening to. I said the next big thing I think will be coming from China. Uh, it's in the same way that Seiko sort of started, Seiko and Citizen in Japan, and there's be some rumblings out of there that I think are going to be really nice, and lucky us. The the Peacock factory, I forgot where it is. I think it's the Peacock factory isn't where most of the other Chinese watch factories are. It's sort of off in like some suburb. Um, and I was reading about it, and they had also made some movements for Seagull, but they also did some other things on their own, and so they ended up being sort of a special one, sort of coming out of the crowd in some very important ways. Parts Max. Oh, Max, you're right, Andrew. Perfect example. Max Boussaert hit in MB and F watches. Yes, absolutely. He's another one I think has really moved it forward. I will say this too. Another one is Christopher Ward. What Christopher Ward did, both with the Bel Canto and his the Loco, the new one, is they've taken something that is really different, or the kind of horology you don't expect in an affordable watch, and did something with it. And my hats off to him for that. I I'm not saying they are like they're the company that they own and work with in Switzerland, Horology something or other. I think they've done some things that look at the popularity of them, how popular they've been with collectors. The collectors would appreciate good horology, but they can only afford so much. And I think that Christopher Ward brought that up, and by doing so, he brought a lot of collectors who were looking at the same thing that's been the same for years and years and years, and really popped it out there. So good for them. Brendan, Stephen McDonald apparently did a great things for the peripheral uh, rotor. Oh, wait, the perpetual calendar at MB&F. I don't know of that name, but I imagine there are some people like that. The same thing at Agenor. There are these guys you've never heard of that. One thing, places like MB&F and Agenor and some of these other places that really are your are top ones, attract the very best watchmakers. Some guy coming out of watchmaker school, he doesn't want to go to work for some company making the same thing over and over and over again. Where there's innovation, I think that's where you can find some really great quality. Anyway, guys, my time is up. Rancher's not here to hit me over the head. Fernando, you're the backup guy for Rancher. I can see by my time I'm a bit over. But I want to thank you a lot for really coming up with some great things today, and I'm glad you did, ones I wouldn't have thought of. Anyhow, some of you I will see tomorrow at our LaRique meeting, and for the rest of you, take care. See you later. See you next time, whenever that's going to be.